Hello and welcome to another episode of the Honeymoons.
Start again.
Look's sake, the Honeymoons.
The honeymoon.
I'm just going to carry on. Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Money Mavens and me jumping over my words. So we are really excited today because we have a return guest, and this is the first time we've had
the first time we've ever had a return guest.
First time ever.
But as soon as we stopped recording with you last time, we were like, we need this guest on again. And then we've had so many downloads of this episode, and
it's been one of our most popular episodes.
It has, and people have re-listened to it, and people have told us how much they love it. So
she's back.
She's back.
So we have got
ladies.
We've got Katie Helliwell, who is a psychic medium and spiritual mentor. So you might remember Katie's episode last time. If you haven't, go back and listen to it because it's brilliant. But welcome back!
Yay!
Well, thank you. It's great to be back here in all the pinkness and redness, my favourite colours.
Yeah. No, we are so excited. We wanted you back on.
Yeah.
For ages, we were like, how long do we have to leave it so we can have return guest? So
there's no rules anyway.
Well, it's our podcast, but you are our first return guest, and we are super excited to have you here, Katie. Thank you so much.
So last time we dug a lot into Katie's kind of history, how she kind of learned that she had psychic abilities, and how she learned all about speaking to spirit, and a lot about how you started your business. And it was amazing. And like we said, if you haven't already, go listen to it. But we wanted to dig a bit more into your business now and what you do. And I know that it's evolved since we've met. It's evolved, like all businesses do. I think they always evolve.
Yeah, and I saw you were talking online about like money healing and all this other stuff, and I was like, sounds so interesting, sounds so aligned to our listeners. So I was like, we need to have you back on. So I think we'd love to like delve a little bit more, Katie, into how you work with businesses, because you're not, like you say yourself, like you're not someone that's just there saying you do readings, with tarot cards. There is so much more to what you do, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And thank you for the platform to be able to share this, because it isn't easy to really articulate what you do when it isn't the norm. And I say it's not the norm, it's the norm to me, but it's not the norm that you see every day online or see advertised everywhere. So I work with businesses, and how that started was because I actually feel really passionate about helping people become the change makers. So it's not just a general, I don't want to undervalue anyone's business here, but it's people that are the change makers that I work with, the ones that feel in their soul there's something more they're meant to do in this life, that they're here to make some sort of difference and imprint. And that can be across anything. It doesn't have to be in the caring sense. It can be in something that they're creating that is changing and revolutionary. But those are the ones, those passionate leaders that are so passionate about what they do, but they need to protect their energy. They need to have some guidance. They need to know exactly where it is they're supposed to be going. They need someone in their wings. So these people are often like creators, and they're very creative souls. They can think of things and they just feel it burning within them. They often stay up late to finish their projects. They're that type of people. They're really heart-led entrepreneurs. And I found that when those people weren't really looking after the vibration, so their actual businesses were fantastic. They're creating this ripple effect around the world, but they're not protecting their energy. They weren't really getting looked after in many senses. They were given a lot, and they were actually getting to the point where they were not going to burn out necessarily, but they were flatlining.
Yeah.
So the flatlining, their business wasn't actually starting to keep soaring and keep growing, because it relied on their energy to keep going. It wasn't based on strategic steps necessarily. Obviously, every business has strategy, but it wasn't like, this is what we're going to do, right? In year one, we're going to market this. It wasn't that masculine energy. It's done in the feminine way and in very inspired action. And so when that inspiration goes, or when that inspiration gets tired, or when that inspiration isn't getting the results straight away, or there's hurdles in the way, these people couldn't keep going. They felt that they were still meant for more, they had to keep growing. So they were responsive and creative based on their responsive energy. So as they were growing, they were gaining more energy. Whereas, as you know, in business, you have to be at the level where you can think and you can grow, and you can take the steps and you can follow your intuition and keep receiving, even when you're not in that responsive energy. So it's about, what I do with them really is really bring them back to source as to what they're actually here to do. So they kind of usually have an idea and they've already created success with it, but usually there's more to it. So we go into the energetics, what they're really here to do. And then we look at what they're like as an individual. So what is it they're actually wanting to bring forward for them? Because quite often they want to create, but they don't want to necessarily claim what they're here to receive at the same time. Especially in my line of work, if they're light workers, you know, there's this old preconceived paradigm that's been going around for years that we can't earn and it's not safe for us to earn and we should give our gifts for free. And there's such wounds attached to that through generations that we're only really unraveling it now and starting this breakthrough. So that's what I do. I work with them as a soul and as a human, understand what they need so that they can have their energetic stance really powerful to be able to keep receiving. So they're good when it's looking like everything's going quiet, they can still rise. It's good when everything's flying around them and they can still rise and they can still receive at every aspect. Whereas what was happening before to them is their monetary flow and their success was only responsive and only being sent to them and flowing when they were in that receptive flow energy. So everyone's seeking to get into that receptive flow. Like, I've got to be in this, I've got to be good, I've got to be high vibe, I've got to get like all this responsive energy. Whereas if they actually just drop into source and I bring them back to them and the truth and really embodying and embedding in them the spiritual belief and the power of what they're actually here to create. They're like rocket fuels and it opens up doors that you just couldn't even begin to imagine. And I know I shared a couple of them just before we click record on here and I'm not allowed to say too much, but there's a couple of examples there that I gave you of where people have had this.
Yeah, share some of those so that listeners can, I know you've got some of it's confidential, but share what you can, because I think it's really interesting to kind of.
Yeah, so there was a client, I can share this one. There was a client yesterday that I had an intensive day with. So I do sort of where people just want to break through, just want to do it. They don't want to sign up for a year or something. They just want to get on with it. So we did a 4-hour intensive afternoon online. And with this client, they were stuck. They weren't actually receiving regular clients. They were getting clients sporadically. So I said, okay, so we looked into it. We looked into their core and we stripped everything back. And they were on the right path. They were in the right line of work, but there was a massive chunk they'd missed. So we just realigned what they needed to do, just restructured the actual packages, restructured their actual message. And then they were like, oh, I don't, and I could see them probably thinking, well, I could see her thinking almost like, yeah, this could work, this might not. And then I said, I just got a message from Spirit that she would literally have success straight away with it, like success. And again, I could feel her energy like, yeah, well, she's kind of going to say this because we literally just stripped all her business apart. She was exhausted, put new packages in place. So she needed to let the energy settle. So we did some meditations, some practices, encoded it and just embodied it in her. I left her. And then 2 hours later, she messaged me going, I've had 2 people book in and ask me for the package we created and I haven't even offered it, haven't even had a chance to release it. But because that coding's there and released, people actually said, do you happen to do this? Because we'd restructured it, 2 people had felt that and felt the pull to it and asked her for that package. Like, you can't, and she's like, I cannot make this up. And I was like, oh, welcome to the world of Spirit. She's like, I haven't even advertised it. I was like, yeah, you don't need to, because energetically, it's you, it's who you are. So it was quite funny. So there's that one. There's ones where, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Just, like, just imagining like Spirit, like a PR marketing person. They're like doing the work for you. It's like amazing. It's like, thank you. Like, yeah, so amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. They really are. There was a client I've worked with that had already built a massively successful business. But the minute I got on the call with them, I just went, oh my gosh, you've completely detached from it. You just don't want to do this business anymore. And this person just burst into tears and just said, I can't do it. I can't keep holding it, but I can't let it go. And this is the thing that I find people build businesses up to get to the level of, you know, this person in particular was very, very wealthy, but they can get to that point, but be so unhappy and so disconnected. And then it comes to the point where it's like, well, how do you get off that train? Like, how do you stop it? Because you've got your life tends to match your income. So how are you going to pay your new mortgage? How are you going to pay for your cars and your holidays and your lifestyles that you've got? Or people depending on you. Maybe you've hired family into the business and you've got to pay their wages. And it just becomes almost too big to walk away from. And so you feel trapped. So a lot of them have been like that. But then we made not a few tweaks, but we did quite a lot on this. We did a lot of work, and we moved things around, and we switched it so that they would have the success, but in something that would work for them and serve them. So we changed it around, and this person is just like now one of my best friends. Just can't quite, they're like, oh, I can't believe that you were there just at the right time. And it isn't me being there at the right time, it's their spirit guide sending them, and then I'm just giving them the guidance, because it's not that I'm a magician at all, far from it. It's just that I can see where they can't see, because they're in the crux of it, and you're there. It's like, it's really hard to see what your next level is. And as you become bigger and stronger in your business and wider, it becomes more costly to make errors. It becomes more costly to your time. And so you don't want to be paralyzed almost sometimes with that. Logistically makes sense, but I don't feel it. And if I did this over here, it's a big jump, but will a big jump and investment necessarily pay off? And it's like, what do you do? So if you can't think straight and you've gone into that point where you can't see the wood for the trees and it's risky and there's a lot at stake, you can't just jump and just hope for the best and cross your fingers and your toes. You've got to drop back in. You know, you need to seek guidance. You need to tap back into you. And so what I do is I don't want people to ever be reliant on me, because people don't. They have like 4-hour sessions sometimes. Sometimes they're with me 2 years. It depends what they need. I want people to be connected back into them. So once you're connected back into you and your intuition is strengthened and you've got that relationship with your guides, which I hope is not too airy-fairy for people, but when you've got that relationship with your guides that are there for you, you don't have that crossroads where you're too scared to make a move and you're trapped.
You find then that when they do the work, it's like, what I'm hearing is that the opportunities are there, but they're so in the thick of running the business and running on like scarcity or like just fear. There could be so many different things that they're ignoring those signs, the intuition. But then when they like unblock all of that, they're going to get those messages, and they're going to know how. First of all, they're going to hear them, and then they're going to know how to act on them. Because I think sometimes I think the universe or spirit or whatever it is giving us things, but we're so numb to it that we can't even hear it, and then it gets louder and louder and louder. Sometimes I still don't hear it.
Well, sometimes it's you don't hear it until there's a hammer being smacked at your head, is there? You know, I know that's happened. Yeah. Well, it gets to the point where it's like, are you listening? Okay, I'm going to make it more uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to make it more uncomfortable. And I know that's happened to me before in my life. I know when I wanted to leave my job when I was in social work, I knew I wanted to leave. I knew I wanted to do my own business, but I just wasn't taking action, and I kept getting these nudges and I was ignoring them. And then I had a miscarriage, and it was like a big hammer to the head. And then I had another one, and it took me 4 miscarriages before to go, something's got to change here. And it was like, I knew those nudges had been coming years before that happened, but I almost feel like that's what happened to really wake me up. And I can see, and you know, some people might say, well, what a load of crap, but I really believe for me, that was a wake-up call for me. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And I left my job and I got pregnant and I had Will, you know, and started a business, and it was the best thing ever. But it was almost like if I'd listened to those nudges 4 years before, would ever have to go through all that pain. But I think, you know, I think sometimes I see it in clients sometimes where they've been saying, I feel like I want to do this, but they're too scared or they don't do it. And then it gets uncomfortable until they've got no choice but to change. Does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense. What you're describing there is an angel cloud. That's what I call them.
An angel cloud.
Angel cloud, that's what I call it. It's like,
love that.
And it's like, you don't want to get to that point because they're so uncomfortable having an angel cloud. They're like, when they whack you and they put everything into a new structure and a new plan, and it's like you feel like you've got no control over your life. So the people who have angel clouds, they'll say, everything's against me. I've tried everything. I've done every step known to man, and it's just not working. I'm just failing. And they'll feel that failure, but really it's nothing to do with that. It's just you've stopped, you've detached from yourself. You need to get back into the flow of who you are, why you're here, what purpose you're doing. Because people disregard that and they go, oh, it's just airy fairy. You do get people say that and say, well, by the time you finish meditating and speaking to your spirit guides, I've made so much money, or I've made done this progression in my business. And it's like, yeah, of course, you need to do those things. You need to take the strategic steps. Absolutely, you do. but it's strategy that's aligned for you and where you're going from purpose. That's why it works faster for people. That's why it's like it's everything's energy. You feel it. So everything's energy, and everything in life, the way you receive love, the way you give love, the way you receive money, where you give money, the energy you're doing it in is reflected, and it goes across the board in everything. And it's exactly the same. So if you're disconnected and detached from you, how can anything be guided to you? Or if it is guided and you're just oblivious and you're walking around with your shutters down, you don't even notice, then of course you're going to feel like the universe is against you, because it'll just be like there's more crap being thrown at you, more crap. And eventually you'll get to the point where I was years and years ago. You walk out of work one day and you just go, just show me what I'm supposed to do. I just give up. I surrender. I give up. People looking at you like you're mad in the street. And so it gets to that point, but you shouldn't get to that point when you're tired, when you've been through, like you did, Josie, with the miscarriages. And if people have lost their businesses or they've lost their mental health because they're just losing their mind from the stress, it shouldn't get to that point. Like, how do we become so detached? And this is why this is why I talk so much on podcasts. I'm doing 4 this week. So I do so much and talk all the time online and share so much, because people need to connect back to themselves. People need to know there's more to this life than the hard work. And if you're not acting from purpose, what are you even doing?
How do you think people then get to the point where we're so shut down? And
we're taught to.
Yeah.
As a society, we're taught to disconnect from our intuition. Kids are told when to eat. They're told what to think, what to like, what's wrong or right. You know, like schools, for example, that's very like, we're told, women or men, everyone are told when we're hungry or not hungry. Like, we're told to disconnect. When we have babies now, they've medicalized it, haven't they? And they make it like, so like, you've got to listen to a doctor instead of listening to your own body. Yeah. And I just think the whole of society teaches us, don't trust yourself. Don't trust yourself, almost, doesn't it? And I was talking about this yesterday at a networking event, a co-working event, should I say. And we were talking about that then. We're taught to not trust. It's almost like, don't trust yourself. Don't trust yourself because there's experts that will tell you what to do, or this is the way to do it. And I think, you know, that's why. And then there's, you know, and then there's things that numb us, like the internet, and you know, there's so much, isn't there? I don't know. What do you think, Katie?
I completely agree with you. And I think we're also we're like guided by people outside of spirit to be responsive to life and situations. So if you're in responsive mode, and I find most people are, when they're kind of in that area where they realize that they're being told a lot, and then they realize that maybe what they've been told isn't quite suitable, and then they realize that there's something else available, but they're in that kind of no man's land in between. They're usually in that responsive energy. So they're in the responsive energy of, okay, I need more money. Right, what can I do to get more money? So then they will only ever be in the energy of getting just enough, because that's all they're open to getting. So they'll probably end up with enough money to probably pay for their bills, have a tiny bit left over for emergencies, but then that's kind of it. Or they'll generate some money, but it will disappear very quickly. And that's because they're only open to responsive. So if they've got a massive tax bill, some businesses do this, got a massive tax bill, and they're like, oh, I've got to pay the tax bill. Where am I going to generate this money from? They generate the money to pay a tax bill, and they go back into, right, I'm okay again now. So it's that responsive energy. So if you're only ever responsive, and you only ever, say, create customer service in your business when, you know, everyone's complaining at you, or you're overwhelmed, you've not put the pillars in place to grow steadily or to grow at a place where you feel supported, then you're in that responsive energy. So that responsive energy, then you're so busy, you're so on heightened alert that you can't really just drop in and relax. Even if you're trying to meditate or trying to tap into any kind of guidance, you know it's there and you believe it, you're going to really struggle, because you're still in that heightened, I can't switch off because I need to make sure that I don't miss anything. I've got to respond. And it's like responsive energy is only going to get you so far in life, and it makes you really tired.
Yeah, but it's just being like you were talking about, like that masculine energy, and I'm like nodding, going, oh yeah, because I'm guilty of it, because I my go-to, and I think people have like their natural go-to energies, but I know that when I do drop into my more feminine energy, I'm so much better, it's like I forget, and then I do it, and I'm like, how have I forgotten that this is so good for me? And I suppose that's why working with you and having a space to do that is so important. It's interesting that you work with lots of businesses on this. Like, I wish when I've had my other business and stuff that I'd had someone like this to do this kind of thing, because it's just so fascinating. And obviously with Josie and I have worked with you now and done readings, and they've been amazing, and we've loved it.
The other thing as well, I think, is like you were saying, and I don't know if we were talking about this before we got on the recording or afterwards, but when you start your business, you have this real boost of energy and like purpose and motivation,
and it's all new,
and it's new and exciting, and you have this like energetic alignment because you feel like you're doing what you should be doing. But it doesn't last doesn't last long term.
You've also got nothing to compare it to, so everything is exciting because there's nothing good or bad to compare it to. So it feels great. All of it's great,
and you almost don't expect too much at first, do you? You're like, okay, I've started, and your expectations are probably a bit lower, and then
celebrate the small wins.
You definitely celebrate everything.
Everything's exciting, isn't it?
And then over time, and I know we see this all the time with clients, and we felt it ourselves, that you can get a little bit like you lose your purpose almost, because your purpose feels like it's changed or it's not as important anymore. You kind of did what you set out to do, and that doesn't feel enough, kind of thing. And I think and the other thing that I've noticed recently, and I don't know if you have, Katie, but there's almost a collective, and I know the economy, impacts all of this and stuff, but there's like almost a collective sigh at the moment that we've noticed, where people are feeling a bit heavy.
Yeah, everything feels a bit heavy, doesn't it?
Have you noticed that yourself, or is that
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. People are really feeling everything's changed. I noticed about 5-6 months ago, actually, I felt like the energy just suddenly changed, not even gradually, just suddenly. And I remember saying to my husband, something's going on, something strange is going on. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I can feel the shift in energy with people. I can feel them almost being really cautious, really like dumbing down their dreams and saying, well, I've got to be realistic, and I can't go big and go strong. And it's like this fear of disappointment and fear of failure or fear of not being enough. It became almost magnified. And I've been trying to find what actually happened here on Earth, because things like the pandemic, for example, can trigger things like that. But this is like recently, so it's not even linked. There's nothing I can link it to, apart from the economy and the government, and in the UK, this is putting pressure on like families, etc., and saying that things aren't going to look good. And obviously, again, that's that responsive energy. People respond to it. Oh, well, this is what's happening. I should be careful, or I should be more realistic about what I want to do here and what my purpose is. And they maybe aren't saying they don't want to do it ever, but they kind of tread a lot more carefully, and they don't invest the way they would have done if they were going all in. They maybe won't hire the people there to support them if they weren't going all in. And so things start to slow down. And so I think as a whole in a business, you do have to keep your eye on what's going on in the world. Of course you do. But I think what's going on in your inner world is the most important thing in the world, because the way that the people that are successful, there's a very few percentage, like, isn't it less than 1% of people are truly reach their full potential? And I think that's such a shame. It's terrible. It's the most saddest statistic I've ever seen, because it's like, why do we limit ourselves so much? What are we so frightened of? Because even if in your eyes you fail, and I'm doing speech marks if you're watching if you're listening on podcast, if you do fail, you've learned so much. You've learned so much, and you can evolve, and you've learned about what you don't want. So energetically, you can start again. If you've got the energy within you and the power within you and the strength, and you're connected to your purpose, and you know that's what you're here to do, and you hold on really powerfully to that, then you can do it. But people give up far too easily, and people don't believe in themselves. And again, that all boils down to connection to yourself. It all boils down to connection. You're always going to have limitations in life. You're always going to feel like you're not enough. And all of that is because your body's supposed to be protecting you. So it protects you from feeling like you could fail. That to them is a danger. So you have to let your soul and your body work together. And this is what I do with people in business. If your soul's really expansive and really wants to go, and you your passion's there, but then your body's like, oh, but I've got to be careful and look at realistically what's going on around me in the economy, and maybe that's not going to fit. You have to get the two energies together to energize you. Otherwise, one's going off one direction, one's the other, and you're going to have that stop-start energy, some success, then not so much, then a little bit more, then not so much, and it's going to be reflected back. So you have to team them together, and that's what I do a lot of work with on the longer term clients. We team the human and the soul, and we put them on that energetic path together, which probably not explaining this really well, but we tune in and get them to mirror what's going on with their personal life with what's going on with their soul, and we mirror it across the board. So then the energy matches, and so they become immensely powerful. And I believe that's the secret to being part of the 1%. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
so interesting.
And it's so easy to neglect. I know that I've found, like, spirituality I use the time that I'm mostly really connected spiritually is when things have gone to shit. And I'm like, okay, I need to like dig deep now. But when things are good, things can pass. Like, oh, I won't do any journaling, or I won't meditate, because actually things are good. And I think naturally Charlotte and I are spiritual naturally, aren't we? And we talk, but there's practices that I will let go when things are great. But then things go, life is ups and downs, and things get easier and harder, and that's always going to happen. That's not going to go away. But I think it's interesting, isn't it, how sometimes we only, well, I should speak for myself, I'll only really kind of see the importance as when things aren't, when I'm struggling.
I don't know, but I always think as well, like, it's when, same with like relationships, whatever, like suddenly when you break up with someone, you're like, right, I need to get a reading, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like suddenly everything, and I think you just get lost. We get so lost and so consumed, what we've been talking about, in this like just surviving mode. And because the media and the government and all these things are wanting to keep us small, but then if you are brave and you want to get in that 1% kind of club, you need to be brave. I think the missing ingredient is that people are not brave because we're not programmed to want to do that. Like we've just been saying, we're told we should be just making do. Somebody I know who's quite powerful and like, got a great career and everything, they said the other day, I just feel like giving up. I feel like this is just the cards I've been dealt, and I've just got to get on with it. And I was like, where has that come from? Like and I just thought, gosh, like even people who are normally quite strong are feeling a bit like, well, it is what it is kind of thing, and it's even more that we've got to do the work and get back to spirituality.
Yeah, and what you both described there, with Josie saying, I only contact spirit when I need them, and then what you just said there about your friend that it's like that's responsive energy. So can you see it? So you go to them when you need something. So again, that responsive energy. But when you embody this and it is who you are, it becomes part of your makeup. It becomes like none of you think to brush your teeth in the morning. Like you just go and brush your teeth. You don't schedule a time in. You don't say, I've got to brush my teeth today. You just get up and do it. Well, I hope you all do. But you just brush your teeth, don't you? And that's it. So you don't schedule it. And that's exactly how spirituality comes. You don't have to sit there for an hour journaling. And you shouldn't rely on it and think, oh, I'm going to have a terrible day if I haven't journaled. Or, oh my gosh, my meditation this morning I didn't do, so my day is going to be totally out of sync. That again is responding to, I have to do something to get an outcome. And that's not how spirituality works. So it's embodying it. So what I do is I teach people how to bring it into their everyday without it interfering in their everyday. So I speak to spirit all day, all the time, and I journal. I do journal and I do meditate a lot because of my job. So I have to make sure I'm clear and concise. But if I wasn't doing this as a career, then I would find a way that suited me more to fit around what I was doing. So I've got clients with like ADHD. I've got clients that can't visualize. I've got clients, all different people with all different needs. There's people that are hard of hearing, etc. So all of those things need to be taken into account because there's not one set way. Some people don't resonate with journaling. They're dyslexic. They can't journal. They don't want to, find it stressful. So you find a way that suits you. So there's a whole different things that you can do every single day that will have that receptive flow open. That's all you need to stay in. Have you connected to you? So then you'll never go into spirit just as a response. Like, I need this, I need this help. It's like, it's just who you are. It's just there. So it doesn't get to that angel clout point.
Now you've explained it, it makes so much more sense. And I'm like, of course,
and
that's how it works.
And I think there's parts of that, you know, that like, I'd say definitely, like, there's some stuff that's just inherently spiritual. So if something happens, I always say, everything's exactly how it's meant to be, you know, like, and I'm very kind of, I'm able to do that. And that's something that I've learned over time. And it's become of who I am. Like, if
it's not happening to me,
it's not, this is happening for me. Everything's all right. It's going to be okay. This is how it should be. And like that kind of spiritual belief that everything's working out. And like, there's things that, you know, the way we speak and talk about manifesting, it's all very much ingrained. But then there's parts that aren't definitely. It's only it's like the certain level.
I think what we've lost is we used to be very good at like carving out and enjoying that time that we did on our spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Because we've got so busy with work, it's like we've almost gone,
that's not as important.
That's not as important.
Yeah.
But then we'll some days be like, I feel exhausted, I don't feel aligned, and and then suddenly having this conversation, you're like, oh, of course,
makes sense.
You know.
Yeah. So there's obviously moments where we need to be human and we can't sit and meditate all day and speak to spirit all day, and that's all we do. But it's got to be part of it's a very important part of it. You know, you are your best guide. Your higher self works through you. Your spirit guides are with you all the time. So the best guidance you can ever get isn't from the internet, isn't from Googling. It's from you tuning into you, and your whole time, never like, you know, the annoying thing I used to have years and years ago before I really embodied all of this myself. I used to say, Spirit, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Help me, help me. And I'd hear, the answers are within you. I was like, oh, I literally want to scream and just like I want to throw something at them. It's not what you want to hear. You want someone to say, do this, take this step, and then this will lead to that. That's what we want, isn't it?
Easier.
It's easier. The answers are within me. I was like, oh, shut up. I used to get really annoyed when I speak to them for a week. And then really the answers are within you because it's you guiding you. So how else can it be? And obviously things like what you guys are doing here with the podcast and sharing your work and the way you're doing your days out and your intensity day that I'm going to come to, by the way, I'm so excited. So all these things that you're doing and creating, that's giving people inspiration. So that's why people like you are needed in the world, because it's like, yes, it's something that connects it. What you do is something you say or a way you speak or a course that you give or some inspiration that you do is going to trigger something inside someone to go, oh my God, that's it. What was inside of me has then activated. And that's why there's people like you that are successful, because you activate something within somebody else. Yeah. So essentially, it's not that we don't need mentors and stuff. We absolutely need the humans around us because they activate something that's within us. But ultimately, the answers are within you. It's that frustrating.
You know, and like no matter my ayahuasca, every time, like it's always the same answer. And you know, like one of the first books I ever read was The Alchemist, and you know, it's a story about what he was seeking was there all along. And then I went and did ayahuasca. I did this like ayahuasca retreat. Have you heard of ayahuasca? You know it's a plant medicine from Peru, and basically it's the strongest hallucinogenic known to man, but it's supposed to connect you to spirit. It's scary. It's a lot. I went on this week-long retreat, and the answer that I was like, people say like you sit with God almost, you sit with spirit, you get the message you need to hear. The message I got, everything you want's within you. And I was like,
she came back. I've never seen someone so pissed off. She was like, I've gone all that way. I've spent all that money. They locked her in a black, dark room. They didn't feed her. She was sick. They drugged her with this drug. And she was, and I went, what was it? What did they say? The answers within me. I went, oh, that's a bit.
Well, that was definitely spirit. Then you definitely made that connection.
Yeah, I definitely made connection. You know what? I laughed because it was like it was almost like a spiritual joke. How far are you going to go to get the answer that you already know? Like, stop looking elsewhere. It's within. And still, Katie, I look elsewhere. Yeah. I still look elsewhere, and I know. And like when I remember, I laugh. Like I'm laughing now. It's been a while, and probably a week since I've heard that. And it's, it's almost like I need a club round my head to remember.
Maybe we need that on the wall.
We do need that on
We
the
have
wall.
we have quite a lot of our quotes on the wall. I think we need to add that one.
But
on.
it's funny because we all know that. We've all heard it, and yet we still all.
What do they say? You're not, until you're doing it, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know it until you're doing it, do you?
Yeah.
But like, we all have heard that before. Everything you need's within you. Like the answers are within, and we know that. And sometimes it's easy to connect to that, and other times it's like, just bloody tell me what to do, will you?
Yeah.
If you're not connected though, and you aren't getting the messages, it does. You can sit there and still. But if you do the work, then the messages are coming, and if you're blocking them, they're not going to come, are they?
And a lot of the time, that's why, like, I know, Katie, that you do readings as well. And a lot of the time people come to readings, I'm guessing, because they want the answer, don't they? They want an answer. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. So I can channel what they're missing so far. So I can give them insight, I can give them information, I can give them steps to take. And I don't want people to ever become just reliant on mediums and things like that. I'm going to end up doing myself out of a job eventually, because you don't really need us. You don't, because everyone's got the ability. You just need to learn and be guided on where it is within you. But yeah, so if someone comes to me and they're like, I've got a problem, I can't, I don't know what to do with this. Do I invest in that, or do I do this? Then I can channel what your guide's been trying to tell you. So it's not I'm making the decision for you. It's the guides are the guides are within you, by the way. So the answers are within, the guides are within you. They are who you are. So it's just me channeling what you can't get because you've gone into human mode, response to what's around me, too scared to make a decision. So that's what I do. And then when you get the information, sometimes people go, well, you've told them that. So if they then take action on it, you've told them what to do. But it's like, no, because the people I have, they listen and then they go, well, that doesn't quite sit right. I don't know. And some people have said, I don't actually agree with you. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know what to say. It's like, this is it. This is what they've said. And then I'll say, why don't you go away and just see what happens? Don't do anything. Let the energy settle within you and see how you feel and see, because if something's meant to move with this, something will happen to give you another sign or to give you a nudge. And then they'll let me know a couple of days later, or a week later, and say, oh my gosh, this happened then. I was doubting you, but then this comes through. And so then it completely cemented what you were saying. It already happened. So I'm like, yeah, there you go. So then they know that is. So some people need a signy sign. So have you ever heard that saying, like they get the sign, they get the message, then they need a signy sign? So
many times I've done that. I'm like, okay, give me a sign, spirit. And I'll be like, so I have the, what's it called? I'm doing it with my finger now. Infinity sign, that's my thing. And so I'm like, let me see an infinity sign if this is right. And I'll see one that's a little bit not fully clear, or I'll be a bit like, oh, is that right? Because I've seen that before somewhere. And so then I need a signier sign. I need it in neon.
A fanfare, music.
But that's about being brave again, isn't it? Because it's about,
I don't have a sign.
Do you know?
Well, 13's my looking. I always look for the number 13.
Yeah.
That's my but I don't have a sign. So what does it have to be?
Whatever you want, isn't it?
So you can actually say your sign, like you can decide what it is that you want spirit to give you, or you can actually say, I'd like to get a sign from you to know you're around, spirit guides. What would be your sign for me? And then just kind of leave it, just see what happens. But then when you get your sign, because it's like, depending on how you receive spirit, because you're all activated in one sense, whether it be your hearing, seeing, smelling, taste, touch, whatever it might be, or emotions. So if you are, say, a visual person, then you will see your sign, go, and it will just stop you in its tracks. It will be really bizarre how it happens, but then you'll feel something. There'll be a certainty within you. You just know it's your sign. Let me think how I can describe it to you. So when I was, so 6.5 years ago, I didn't know whether to do this full time. I really wanted to do it, but then there was a scarcity around, would I be able to afford to feed my family? Should I just stay in a mainstream job and do this on the side? Would I then have time to do it? So all these things going around my head. In the end, I went to bed and I said, look, spirit. And I said this in my head, and my husband's next to me, and I went, just tell me what to do. Just send me a white feather if I'm meant to do this. If I'm meant to do this business, I don't know why I chose white feather. It wasn't particularly my sign. I hadn't read anywhere about angels and spirits with white feathers, but I just said, just send me one if I'm meant to do this. And then if I get my feather in a way that really stands out, there's a lot of T's and C's with this, then I will do it, right? So I'll do it. Anyway, I woke up in the morning and Mr. H, he opened the blind and he said, oh my God. He said, I think a bird's been killed in our back garden. And I said, why? I said, oh, don't tell me there's a dead bird on the patio. Please don't tell me. And he's like, no, no, no. He said, the garden's full of white feathers. He says, it looks like it's been snowing. So I jumped out of bed. I was like, oh, he went, what's wrong with you? Because I never used to jump out of bed then. And I jumped out of bed and went, oh, and the garden was full. When I say full, it was like somebody just tipped all the white feathers in the world in our back garden. And they were everywhere. And obviously Mr. H is thinking, how am I going to get all these off the lawn? And he's thinking, and I'm like, thank you, Spirit. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. He's like, what on earth are you doing? He already thought I was weird anyway. He definitely thought I was mad. And I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. And as soon as I
all that, could you?
It's funny, now you're saying it, I ask for a sign in the form of, I ask to connect to somebody in spirit, and I ask for a song that's like a song that only me and that person would, and it's happened quite a few times.
Yeah.
So maybe
that is,
I don't know.
That's a sign in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, like, if I'm feeling a bit unsure about something, I just need a bit of reassurance, I ask for this song. So yeah, maybe I need to tune in. But I'd like a sign as well, like, I want it. Well, I want it all.
Have it
It's
all.
typical me. I want it all. I'm like, I want a song. I want a sign. I want a feather. I want.
wants to sign me a sign. See, so it's very normal to be like that. Yeah.
13 though is my lucky number, and it does follow me around. It does. I've noticed it does follow me around.
13.
Oh, it's so. If somebody does like a day or whatever with you, what happens then? Like, I'm so intrigued. I'm like, what happens after the day? Like,
heart and put back together again. It's not hearted at all. It's not hearted. It's for those that are knowing that there's something they're missing. There's something they're meant to be stepping into. There's something more that they're here to do, and they're not fully accessing it. So then what we do is we go through everything. We go through their, I just tune into them spiritually. I open up, for anyone who doesn't know what tuning in, I open up to spirit. I match into their energy, I tap into them, and then I see where I'm guided. So I get points of their life to go to. So for example, there's one where they said go to their first marriage. Didn't know they'd been married more than once. And said, oh, you've been married more than once. And they're like, yeah. I said, I'm going to your first marriage. So go to the first marriage, and then we go into it. And there'll be a series of questions that I ask that I'm told to ask. And then we go through, and then we uncover parts of it where maybe it's left scarring, or something's caused something or it needs looking at, and then we open it up. So then I find where their purpose is and why they got to where they are, and what it is about where they are that's not serving them, what it is they're holding on to, and what it is they're not allowing themselves to step into, what's the meant for them. And I actually see what they're supposed to do. So you can imagine spirits see you in there. Like, imagine you on your best day. Imagine you've woke up and you've done your workout. You've like, your makeup's gone absolutely amazingly well. You just feel like you're the bomb. That's how spirits see you, in your fullest and strongest, powerful potential. So what I do is I see what that is. Sadly, not everybody gets to that point in life. As I said, it's a very few percentage, but spirit holds you in that energy. So when someone's holding you in that energy and can see that full potential, it's incredibly powerful for you, because you know what you're working towards, you know what you're capable of, because you can see it, and someone else is holding that vibration for you and can see it. So then you activate yourself, because you're like, right, okay, that's my full potential. I'm nowhere near that, or I'm only here. I want to get to that point. But it's not that you're unhappy where you are, you become settled where you are, but you know where you're going. So it's just programming you. And then we take the steps, we give them a plan, what they need to do energetically, what they need to do strategically, and for them as a person, and we get them to that point. So if they're with me for longer, so some stay with me for like sign up for a year package. Some people have been with me a lot longer. I've got a client that's been with me 3 years. I've had one that's signed up for 2 years, and they're the ones that really get the biggest shift. They're the 1%ers, definitely. But the ones that are wanting to get something and more self-led, they can still get a massive shift. And I always hear back from them. They always say, oh, I've done this. And they might come on and do another couple of programs with me at shorter or readings later on. But I always hear back from them, and they send me a nice email, let me know updates, which is nice to see and hear. But the ones that are with me longer term, I nurse them through it all. So when those hurdles of self-doubt come in and they need a sign, they've got spirit there on tap. So, and while they're building their relationship up, and they go, oh, this happened, is this true? You know, do you think I've made that up? And I'm like, right, well, this is this, that's what it means. And they're like, oh, okay. And it rebuilds their faith. So essentially, I give them the utter tools of strength to go in the right direction, to save time, to save money, save their energy, because we don't know how long we're here for. Without sounding morbid, you just don't know. Like in my line of work, you see people's lives change so quickly that you don't take any moment for granted.
Yeah.
So you just don't. So it's about understanding that their time's now. There's no time to wait. Why would you wait? Do it now. And that's what I do.
How do you deal with your humanness then? Obviously, I know you can connect to spirit, but you're still a human at the end of the day. I know you're a mom of 3. Is that right? Mom of 3?
I have a lot of help.
Yeah.
A lot of help. So I probably haven't quite mastered that. So like I get up in the morning, I do my school run, do the gym, and then I realise, oh my God, the washing. I need to make sure so-and-so's got a t-shirt for tomorrow and this and this. So it's all of that kind of thing. But because I'm working in my passion, what I found is I've got more energy than I've ever had. So I do end up being able to juggle it all. I wouldn't say it's smooth and plain sailing. That would be completely lying. But I do have a lot of support. So I have my husband's amazing. He's really good. We support each other in our careers really well. I've got a team that support me and they go above and beyond to help. It's like they want to do more and more to help you. But then I really recognise them as well and really value them. So they were very valued investments that I made. So they really support me. We go above and beyond for each other and we have such a giggle. And then I've got an actual home team as well. So I've got people that come in and clean and support in that way and help with like ironing. Because I find that if my house is chaotic, my energy is chaotic. So I have to have, not pristine, but I have to have order in my house.
Yeah.
I'm really, really particular about that. So I know where everything is and I like the cupboards to be full and everyone to have food that isn't out of date in the fridge, you know that. Yeah. So I have a lot of help with that side of things, definitely. And
those are the things that would knock you off. Those are things that could knock you off, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if I've got too much there and I've got children without clothes clean and their rooms are a tip and the house is just like, you know, bits falling apart, I just wouldn't cope. So that I know is my trigger, that I know I need to have everything in order in a certain way, without with the control aspects. But that's what I need to stay in my focused, energetic container with you guys and with, you know, serving people. And so I know what my human needs are. And so I adhere to them. I need my friends. I need time away from the family. I need alone time. I love it. So I make sure every week I've got some alone time, whether it be I just tootle off to a shop somewhere, go and get my nails done or something like that. But it's that alone time. I do need it. So my humanness, I've never listened to myself more than ever. And that has definitely helped me succeed.
Yeah. Do you have to switch off from like, because we were talking about this yesterday again at this co-working thing, like
I don't in a different room, so I don't remember any of these conversations.
Well, you were talking to one person else. And I was talking to
I missed out on all these conversations.
But we were talking about like I don't watch the news and another lady there doesn't watch the news and Charlotte does watch the news and you know, I understand why people watch it and I know why I don't, is to protect my own energy, because actually I find it really upsetting. But then on the other hand, you don't know about things that, you know, could make a difference in the world. But things like that, do you kind of have to spend less time watching the news or on the internet or anything like that? Or can you kind of switch like between being switched on spiritually and just kind of numbing?
You know what I found? The more that I've become spiritually grown and the more I do this work, the more I can see over what we initially get told. I'm a bit of a challenger, so I don't listen to the news. I don't pay any attention to it unless it's something that's really, really you have to pay attention to, sort of like COVID, for example. It really affects our day-to-day life. But really, I don't pay any attention to it. And it isn't to protect my energy. it's because I don't really value it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it brings me value. I don't really feel, because I can see over it, and I can see where it's entertainment, where it's been exaggerated. I've kind of, years and years ago, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, 6 years ago, and you probably remember this, Josie, because I knew you then. It was like 6 years ago, I was like, I'm going to be a famous psychic. I was so ego driven in that sense. And I don't know why I had this passion and really where it came from was I felt I could only get my message out there if I was really well known. That's where it came from. I didn't realize that I didn't need to do that. So now I look at it and I look at the celebrity world, and I look at that sort of, magazines talking about people's cellulite, all that kind. I just think, oh, it just seems so, what's the word? Shallow and just
horrible.
yeah,
Just
like
level
irrelevant.
Yeah.
That poor person's a person. So I've grown so much that I don't pay attention to things that don't bring value. I think the thing that can bring you value in life is understanding what you need. And so people need space, people need to be able to think, people need to be able to connect to themselves, people need to own their values, own why they're here. People need to build on their relationships around them and give them all the love in the world and attention. And if people focus more on their own world and not what's going on outside of that world, I think as a collective we could grow immensely.
Love that. Wow.
So good.
That's so good.
Whenever I speak to you, my mind like goes at about 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'm thinking about all these things. And like, I had a reading with you, I think it was February.
Yeah.
And
It was on about it all the time.
It was because it was so good. Like, it was amazing. I was like, I want one every day. It was so brilliant because it just makes you think and stop and connect, which is why what you do, and it's just really powerful. Really, 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 really powerful.
Yeah, and it's funny actually, because you were talking about like your spirits see your potential. And I think when you had that reading with Katie, you definitely felt like, because I think at the time you'd been feeling a bit rubbishy, hadn't you? And came away feeling like actually there is, I know there's so much, I've got so much potential, there's so much more I can do, or so much more I want to do, or that kind of thing. And I think sometimes just like hope's really important as well, isn't it? We all have moments where we lose a bit of hope or feel less hope. And I think just when you are connected spiritually, then it's all hope. Everything feels like there's a hope. And I think that's super important.
Because I think when you lose the connection with yourself, that's when too many of other people's opinions and things can come in. And then suddenly you operate, and I know because I've done it myself, and then you don't feel aligned because you're thinking, well, that I wouldn't normally make that decision. But we're so influenced, especially by relationships or parents or friendships or the media. It can be all sorts of different things. But if you really know yourself and you're really in tune with that, then you're strong enough to say, no, this is what I believe. I know maybe I should start watching the news because it is awful, getting so. I struggle with it. If I don't keep up to date with things, I'm like, am I then being tone deaf? And I'm not like, I'm living in my own little bubble, and I struggle with that in myself. I'm like, I don't want to we live in Cheshire, and I always call it the Cheshire bubble. It's not real. It's not real life. It's very privileged, and and I'm like, I don't want to lose touch with reality. It's just such a you can
battle.
Yeah.
You can be in the real world and still be in your protected world and be aware. So I find that when you have real conversations with real people, which I do a lot, and when you're a psychic or when you're spiritually open, you find everyone talks to you everywhere you go. So everywhere I go, doesn't matter where I am, everyone talks to me, and I love it because I can actually speak to people about, and we talk about everything, like from dogs to, if I'm with Henry, or we talk about children or life or anything. And so I think you can learn a lot more about the world from the real people. And I do have to say now, and I'm going to say this on here, but this is the year where from going forward now, the real people are having real voices, thanks to social media. our opinion and what people see is really making a difference now, and people are speaking up, and people are creating their own platforms, and people are saying what they think about things. And I think it's amazing, because we need everyone's different perceptions on life and opinions. And I think it's brilliant that people are finding the platform to do that now. And it's not just the news that we're all relying on and clinging on to. We're actually listening to lots of different people have lots of different views and opinion. I love it. I love to hear, like, why do you have that belief, and why do you have that one, and what was your background? And I love it. So I think it's great to have that diversity in the world.
Well, the more people that can speak their truth and can it stop being that, hopefully this thing of being wanting to be, people trying to control us, and
or being right, because the truth is there's rarely a right thing, is there? There's a different perspective on things, different ideas about things, but which one's right? Who knows? What's right for you, Katie, is going to be different than what's right for me, and what's going to be different than what's right for Charlotte, and that's okay. And I think, like,
so many people want to make you wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
So many people want to make you wrong.
So I think that's it's true. The more voices and opinions that we hear, then the more of a broad spectrum we have of that. And you kind of, like you said, you're not lost touch with reality there.
I've noticed that you have absolutely smashed it on TikTok as well. Like, you are on it on TikTok.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's a great platform. There's so many, it's a lovely energy on there. People are so kind. Yeah, it's one of the nicest social platforms, definitely.
I don't really get it. I'll go and watch my son's TikToks, because he does them, just to make sure.
I watch yours, Katie.
Oh, thank you.
The only one
I'll follow you now. But
Katie's absolutely smashed it on TikTok.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. I hardly go on. I just go on to check what Otis has put on and make sure that it's, that he's not swearing. Or we caught him on one of them with a vape. Flipping heck. My husband had a vape. My husband had got a vape for when he went out, and Otis had found it in the cupboard. And then the next thing, he's on TikTok going.
Just to say, Otis is 14. He's not like 2,
Yeah, he is 14. yeah, he's 14, not 2. Just making that clear. But it's still not okay.
No, we know it's not. But he's doing typical teenage antics.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to connect with you, Katie, obviously Instagram, TikTok. You seem to be more TikTok than Instagram maybe at the moment, but on Instagram. How to reach out to you if they want to work with you though in these packages? How's the best way to reach out?
To just drop me a DM. So I check all the DMs, or someone in the team does, throughout the day. So if I'm on calls all day, don't worry if you don't always get a response straight away. Somebody will pick up your message. But the best way to contact is Instagram. But I have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I don't. I feel like it's one of the hardest platforms to really break. I don't really check the DMs in TikTok, just to let you all know, because there's so many. And a lot of them are quite spammy. So I don't check those, but you can just reach out to me on Facebook Messenger or on direct message on Instagram.
We'll put all Katie's links in the show notes as well, so you can head over there and find where she is. But thank you so much. And we always ask this, and we will have asked you last time, and I'm sure it'll be a different answer because it's different for people on every day. But like, if there's one piece of advice that you would like to give listeners, what would that be?
Okay, will be different. So change your energy now from responsive. Recognize where you are making decisions or choices or desires from a responsive energy, and just feel into what actually at the core of things really matters to you. And if you are to leave this earth, and it's your last day and it's way in the future, what do you want to look back on and think, oh my God, I'm so pleased and proud of myself for making that imprint on the world, or doing this in the world? And then that's what you want to focus on. Give your energy to that.
I'm going to take that on myself.
Absolutely going to take that on myself.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a joy.
We might have to make it a hat trick and have you on a third time, Katie, because it just is never enough time. But thank you so much. We're the Money Mavens. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having me.